So how do you guys feel so far? Good? Hungry yet? Almost lunchtime, so make sure I don't run overtime. I think it should be okay with the stuff I prepared for today. So we're going to talk about what's new in OMS. So hoping that you guys all have, raise your hand if you played with OMS. Okay, quite a few. That's good. So I'm not going to talk about what is OMS and all that, what you can do with it. I'm just going to talk about the new features released in OMS in the last 6 months or so. So yeah, thanks for the sponsors. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Tao Yang. I'm an independent consultant. I run my own consulting company called TY Consulting. I'm a cloud and data center MVP, along with Daniel, David, and James. I think we're all cloud data center MVPs, right? And only doing another bucket. So my main focus is on System Center and now OMS. As Daniel mentioned, in the last 6 months or so, I've been very busy with another 3 friends. We wrote this book together for OMS. So this book is on the only book that's available on the market right now for OMS. So I'm going to give this signed copy away to someone who filled out the session email. And other than that, I also spend a lot of time writing Scrum management packs. So any Scrum people in the help? Cool. So hope you guys have at least heard about the self-management pack I wrote for Scrum 2012. It's become one of the very popular community pack out there in the Scrum world. So this is my contact details. I'm on Twitter, and you can also reach me on my email. Okay, so today's agenda, I'm going to talk about the new features in OMS. I have prepared 2 demos. Obviously, we only have 45 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to go through all the new features released in the last 6 months, but I have picked a few to dive into. Okay. So this is probably the only slide I included for introducing what's OMS. So OMS is a hybrid management tool for your infrastructure. So it doesn't matter if your machine, all your application is sitting on-prem or on Azure or other clouds. You should be able to use OMS as a management engine for all your components, all your assets. So it consists of 4 areas: log analytics and security and compliances. Also automation and backup and site recovery. So these are the 4 areas that OMS is focusing. So break down to products, log analytics and security and compliance. These 2 products are actually shipped from Azure Operational Insights. And automation, it basically is Azure automation, but you can integrate that into your OMS. Into your OMS workspace that gives you some enhanced capabilities, which I'm going to show you later. And also backup and site recovery. So that's Azure Backup and ASR. So hopefully you guys all been to Daniel's session earlier today, where he talked about backup and site recovery. Okay, so let's start talking about what's new in OMS log analytics. So these are just some of the lists that I'm allowed to show you. There's some private preview stuff that made available to MVP, but due to NDA agreement, I won't be able to talk about it. But these are the ones that I can talk about, right? So firstly, in I think the last month or so, they completely redesigned the web portal interface. So now the portal looks like very similar to the Azure portal now. And I think it's about 6 months ago they released a new feature called Near Real-Time Performance Data Collection. For the Scrum people, you all know that you can collect performance data in Scrum, but in OMS, using this NRT curve collection, you can collect performance data as often as every 10 seconds, and you can see the live data on the OMS portal as they come in. So back then, when you're using Scrum, taking snapshots every 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever the interval you set, those rules are. But it's point of time. You cannot actually use that for real-time troubleshooting, right? It's good for reporting, long-term reporting, but you won't be able to see the sudden spike of any code data. But for this one, because it's collected in such a frequent fashion, every 10 seconds, you can actually kind of try to use that for real-time troubleshooting purposes. Also, they've added Linux agent support, so you can install that agent, the OMI agent, on Linux machine and onboard Linux machines into OMS that collects performance data as very similar fashion as Windows agents, and also collecting syslog data and also third-party alerting monitoring tools like Nagios. You can get those data into OMS as well. Also, they've released like a small solution to manage your Surface Hub, because obviously I don't have a Surface Hub to play with. I haven't played with it, so I just to put out there. And also AD status replication. So replication status can be monitored in your OMS now, as long as you have your AD Active Directory domain controllers onboarded into your OMS. They've improved the security and audit solution, so they include a heat map, like a map, which I'm going to show you later, and it shows you that where the threats are coming from on the map. So if you have any Russian hackers try to get into your machine, hopefully you should see a dot that's pinned somewhere in Russia. That's where the malicious IP is coming from. They release a feature called alerting and remediation. So basically, OMS is all about big data. So you collect all tons of data into OMS, use search query to produce any meaningful results for you. But you can take the same query and then apply and also specify thresholds to define your alerting rules. So if a query runs and the number of results comes back, it's below or over your configured thresholds, a alert is going to be fired. So you can configure the alert notification to be like an old-fashioned email. You get a send an email, say this alert has fired and this is such result. But also, very similar to SCOM, you can also apply remediation tasks. So not only it can notify you that this alert has happened, you can also specify how do you want to fix the alert. So it's going to try to remediate those issues for you as well. So, and also there's a Power BI integration that was released a few weeks ago, went into public preview. So, but we had it in private preview for a very long time. And actually, it was mentioned, was covered in this book as well. So Power BI is being a very universal dashboarding solution that comes from Microsoft. You can ship your OMS data into Power BI and then do a dashboard there. I'll have demo prepared for Power BI. Also, computer groups. So you can now this feature was released I think last week, or not even maybe even this week. So this one allows you to either use a search query to define a group object in OMS, and then later on when you do a search query, you can apply the scope to this particular groups in the query language. You can also import groups from AD or WSAP. So I import all my groups in the AD. I can just say I want to do this post counter to this AD group. That will show me the result scope to this particular group. And also they released a feature that's right now in public previews called OMS Gateway. So for those people that in a corporate environment behind the firewall, you don't want open ports and have all the agents that directly connected to the internet. And it's very hard, and when it's really hard to work with your like the network people to get all the ports open and all that, you can install this component as a gateway component. It's basically the standard HTTP proxy. You can point all your OMS agents to this particular gateway server, and the gateway server that everyday source data and send to OMS. So you don't have to open those ports for every machine. Right. So what's new in Azure Automation? Recently they started supporting PowerShell Runbook. So we all know Azure Automation that was developed on top of based on the on-prem solution called SMA, Service Management Automation, which is a component in System Center 2012 R2. So SMA only supported PowerShell Workflow Runbooks. In Azure Automation, they've recently released two other types of runbooks to support, which is the first one is PowerShell Runbook. So basically, you can send any of your existing PowerShell scripts into a runbook without having to convert that to PowerShell Workflow first. And also the Graphical Runbooks. So has anyone played with used a System Center Orchestrator? Yes. So you know what's it called, Runbook Designer experience. You just drag and drop all the activities and link them together and do the input output. This is very similar. This is a very similar experience that you have with the Graphical Runbook. So you just drag all the activities from your PowerShell modules and then define the runbook connections and the workflow that way as well. And they also released a SDK for you to write this PowerShell Graphical Runbooks in Visual Studio. I'm not sure what's the use case for that, but if you don't want to use a Graphical Runbook, use PowerShell Runbook, right? But they released a SDK for you to use code to generate those Graphical Runbooks. So Azure Automation can also support source control integration with GitHub at the moment. So right now you can check in your code, like your runbooks, into your GitHub. So if you ever need to roll back another earlier version, you can from GitHub. And it supports open support for webhooks. So webhook is just a standard HTTP URL. You hit in a HTTP post request, you hit this URL that triggers the runbook without having to use any authentication or any PowerShell command to trigger the runbook. So basically just an HTTP request, hit this URL, and then the runbook will be triggered. And recently they opened up the support for hybrid workers. Before you can only create a runbook targeting a worker to run a job on Azure, right? Recently they opened support for hybrid workers, so you can actually run them on hybrid workers. And they also recently started with a new version of the hybrid worker. They added support for running Graphical Runbooks on hybrid workers. Does anyone doesn't know what hybrid worker is? Okay, so hybrid worker is it's a runbook worker, but instead of sitting on Azure, that sits in your on-prem. It's running the MMA, the OMS agent. So you use a few lines of PowerShell script to enable this role on the hybrid worker, and then that's your on-prem worker, and that it pulls data from your automation account every few seconds. So with no outside pulling, it's a very secure way to extend the Azure Automation, or your automation solutions into your on-prem data center. So you not only can use Azure Automation against your asset on Azure, you can also extend that to your other clouds or your on-prem using the hybrid worker. So that's what that is. And also you can specify a customer run as account on the hybrid worker. So by default it runs everything on the local system, but you can now specify a default customer run as account. Say I want to run all these jobs on this hybrid worker against under say a domain admin account, right? Okay. So Azure Backup and File Recovery, this is some new features. Hopefully you guys all went to Daniel's sessions where he talked about it. This is not really my area, so I'm just going to put...
We'll cover the data during lunch as well, so Ethan I'll be in here again.
Yep. So this is a few new features. So there is Azure Backup Server and the long retention period, like up to 99 years. You can back up all DPM workloads to Azure, and for Azure Site Recovery, it's an enhanced VMDR scenario, which I think Daniel talked about. So. Okay, so now let's dive into a few scenarios. OMS alerting. So that became generally, so before was private preview, then was public preview a few months after that. We had it in public preview for a few months, and then that became generally available a few days ago. Like I said, it's based on an OMS search query, and you can three types of responses you can have: email notification, or you can trigger a Azure Automation Runbook, as long as that the runbook is sitting on a automation account that is connected to your OMS workspace, right? And there's another method called supports just triggering a webhook. So there's some similarities between Azure Automation Runbook and the webhooks. They're triggering the Azure Automation Runbooks via webhooks as well, but they also brought in a mechanism to trigger any webhooks. So we all know that Azure Automation is not the only system that supports webhooks. So if you have other systems that support webhooks, such as Slack, the product team has written a blog post on how to load those OMS alerts onto Slack using webhooks. And also, if you have a webhook that's created against another automation runbook in another subscription, in another account, you can trigger that as well, right? So this is more flexible. And in terms of the data that's passing into this webhook, the mechanism, you get more data passing into the webhooks than the runbook. I've written a detailed blog post on my blog. If you just go to my blog and then search for webhooks, you'll find it. So they added a new functionality when it became GA called alert suppression. So you can define that when this alert is triggered, I want to suppress this alert for a number of hours. So if it's something that keeps occurring, I don't want to get bombarded with alerts. So you can specify the alert suppression, and you can also edit the alerts now. Before you couldn't do that. And the search time, the search win interval is between 5 minutes to 24 hours. And I think before they went on GA, the supported limit for the number of alerts you can create under your OMS workspace is 10. And although now that the new support limit is not announced, but I've heard from multiple sources within Microsoft it's now 100. So you can create up to 100 alerts within your OMS workspace. Let's do a demo here. That's not the page. Okay. Alright, this is my OMS portal. As you can see, it looks very similar to the Azure portal. So I start everything with the log search. I've already got a search query defined. I'll go through the search query with you together. So I want to search. There's a solution I enabled on OMS called the change tracking solution. So one of the capabilities from change tracking is that it tracks changes of all the service stop and start events on your agent. So everything starts with the type. Say I want to search for configuration change type events, where the configuration change type is Windows service, and the state change is stopped. So I want to search for all those service stop change stop events for this particular service, Windows time service. And as you can see, I've got some some results come back over this is the last period, right? So over the last 1 day. So now I'm happy with this query. It doesn't really matter whether you have alert results showing up here or not. As long as I'm happy with the query, I can click on the alert button on the top and then start creating an alert rule. So I can give you the name, say Windows Time Service Alert. Now I can specify the severity. Before I couldn't do that, so doesn't matter. I want it to be critical. I want to search. I want the time window. So I want this search query to search all the data that came in over the last 15 minutes. Right. So this is what the time window means. And I want to generate alert if the search result number of result came back is greater than 0. So at least if there's one result came back, then alert is going to get fired. And I want to check this alert I want to run this alert every 15 minutes. And optionally, I can also throttle the alerts, right? Say if this alert fires, surprise it for 20 minutes or 20 hours, or whatever you want to do, right? I don't want to do that. So I want email notification, OMS alert, Windows Time Service. Type in my email address. So this is the webhook I was talking about. So you can either do you can do both. So you can specify a webhook URL you want this alert rule to trigger. Or I can pick a runbook. This is all the runbook that's from my automation account, which is associated to my OMS workspace. One catch: your runbook has to be on the published state before it appears on this list. If you have one on the edit state, it won't show up on this list. Right. So I've got this particular runbook showed up here, written specifically for this purpose, to restart a service triggered by OMS alert. I want to run on a hybrid worker. I got two hybrid worker groups. I specify the one on the run and the one click save. So it might take a few hours before this alert rules start to become active. So I suggest you to be a little bit patient. Once you create this rule, you go to the settings page in the alert tab. You'll see this one here, and you can go edit it. Now there's a known bug which is confirmed by Microsoft. See, I specified to run on hybrid worker, but it shows up on Azure. But this is just a known bug. It actually created on the hybrid worker, which I can show you. So going back to the runbook, this is again. By the way, this is my automation account. This is the particular runbook that I created for this purpose. So what this alert rule does is that it automatically creates a webhook for me. So and then it's going to use this webhook to trigger the runbook. If I go to the property of the runbook, the webhook, you can see that it's running on the particular hybrid worker group that I picked. Okay, so let's go through the content of the runbook. So the webhook data, the webhook when triggers the webhook, they send a JSON formatted data in HTTP body, which contains the search result. So what I've done is that I've taken this webhook input data, convert the data from JSON to a more readable format, like a hash table, and then I'll start getting the getting the information I need from the search result from OMS. So I have the computer name, I have the service name, and then I also on the top say I've specified a optional optional input parameter for the service for the credential I want to use. If it doesn't get passed in, which it wouldn't, because webhook wouldn't know what credential is, and I'm just going to use a default one, which is a credential object I created in my automation account for, I think it's got domain admin, right? And then I'm going to use that one to start a service using WMI. Right? So very nice and easy. Just go use WMI to query the service and then go start it. Yeah, start a service. Okay, so because the state changed, the service stops and starts state change events only collected every once an hour in my by OMS. I won't be able to show you this in real time, but I run this before I came in this morning, and there is an alert fired. Actually, there's another one fired just now. Okay, so this is the one I fired this morning, and this is what the alert email looks like. And it also shows you the top 10 results, right? And it shows you the search query and a bunch of information about my workspace, and here's the result. So in this particular alert rule, as you can see, there's one that executed this morning about 7:26 a.m. This is the one that I just showed you where the email is triggered. And because I put some right output messages in my runbook, you can see that at 7:28 a.m. it's a message say I'm starting the service on this particular computer called SQL DB01. So I captured the screenshot. This is a particular Windows service start event from SQL DB01, 7:28 a.m. So this is the event that's caused by the OMS alerting line. All right. Computer groups. It's a new feature. It's created. You can either create it based on the search query or the AD, or you port from AD or WSUS. So when you use, then you can narrow down search. Say, for example, I want to get the percentage processor time performance data on all my SCOM servers. I've already created a group called SCOM servers, and then I can use this computer in computer groups SCOM service, this phrase to only limit my search result to this particular group. And I can also, when I enable AD group import, you can use the AD group as well, right? Computer group source, Active Directory, group name, domain controllers, and then you can see the result there. So there's a blog article about the grouping in OMS. If you guys want to read more about it, this is the link. It's the link there. I'll just give you a quick demo as well. Alright, going back to OMS. Let me cancel that. Go back to search. See, because I'm trying to create groups for my SCOM service, all my SCOM servers that starts with the phrase OM, that's a prefix for my SCOM service. So say computer equals star OM star, and a distinct computer. So I want to put a computer name. And then once I get that result, search result, I can click on Save button here to create a save search. But again, this is a new feature, right? So there's a yes and no button here. Say, do you want to create this query as a computer group? And then I click on yes, and then once I save it, and it becomes a saved group. So once the group is created, it will show up in here, saved groups. As you can see, I've got one called SCOM service. If I click on View Member, that actually takes me to the same screen, and execute the query, and it shows me my SCOM service there. So I also have Active Directory groups. Basically, click the box and then import all the groups from your AD domain controller, and you can see all the groups that's imported to AD. Again, just link to a search query that shows you all the groups that's imported from my domain controller on-prem AD. Okay, OMS gateway. As you can see that there's a diagram here. That's actually I got this from a blog post from Microsoft, from TechNet. So it's a standard HTTP that's specifically designed for passing OMS data. So we all know that in OMS we can connect a existing SCOM environment, SCOM management group into OMS, and some of the data are sent from SCOM to OMS. So why do I still need this? Because although if you have SCOM connected agents connecting to OMS via SCOM, some of the data are still sent directly from the agent to OMS. Some of the high volume data, such as near real-time performance data, security events, and wire data, and a few other ones I can't remember. So this high volume data, because they don't want SCOM to be the bottleneck, so the design decision is that although even for the SCOM connected agent, this data are sent to OMS directly from the agent to OMS. So that's where you, go ahead.
What about the level of compression between the two? Because if you have OMS agent, does it compress the data with this gateway service?
I'm not too sure what's the compression for that, because it's really new. I haven't really gone into that part. I'm not too sure if it does compression. I'll find out. So for those in those scenarios, if you like enable near real-time performance collection, for example, you still need to have a way for your OMS agents to send data in. So this is directly from a customer feedback from what I heard, because the customer is complaining about having to deal with your network team to set up a proxy. They've designed this proxy component just only for the purpose of OMS. Again, you can use another proxy on top of that, so you can connect this one. You can configure your OMS gateway server to use the proxy on the system level, but this one can be the aggregator for all your OMS traffic. And you can use that for SCOM management groups, SCOM management service, right? Direct connect agents and also Linux agents. It doesn't matter. So in my work, lab environment, I set up a 2016 TP4 server, installed it like on a server core machine without GUI, no problem at all. So this is a blog post here. I've also written a blog post on my blog on my experience with this. You can read more about it if you want to. Okay, so now let's talk about Power BI. Who here went to my session at SDU for the Power BI session? Right? Do you like it? Okay. So I was releasing public preview in August 1st. So this is how it works. Firstly, you define a search query, and then you specify in OMS, this is a search query that I want you to send the result to Power BI on this set interval, right? So then you configure the schedule to send to Power BI, and then once the data is sent to Power BI, you can create a Power BI report based on the data that you send from OMS. And then based on the reports, you can create a dashboard. You can share your dashboards with people internally in your organization or externally in your organization as long as they have a Power BI account. Or you can integrate a Power BI report in other systems using iframe, such as SharePoint. So you can take a Power BI report and embed it into system that supports iframe. So this is the one I did for HCU. So as you can see in here, I've got performance data, performance graphs, some wire data connections, say what process is making the network connections in all my servers, and some alert data, some raw data as well. And actually this location widget is actually from SCOM, so that was another topic that I did in SU. Actually, this dashboard not only contains data from OMS, but you can correlate data from other sources as well, such as the on-prem SQL database. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how quickly I can create a dashboard tile in Power BI. Okay, so in OMS, I've created a Power BI connection. Sorry, so if I just go type equals perf, that gives me all the perf data. Oops. Actually, I can just go here. So again, this is what I talk about, like near real-time performance data. Type equals perf. That's near real-time performance data. And so as you can see, there is a light blue color on the end of this graph. This is the real-time data that just came in after I open up this graph. Okay, so now I can go to Power BI and save this. It's a Power BI save query. Say I want to say Power BI perf. Use the current search query. I want to run, I think the lowest is every 15 minutes, and I want to give a data set name. This is what that name is going to appear on Power BI. Say I want to say OMS NRT perf, and click on save. So once I click on save, within a few minutes you see this data set appears in Power BI, and then it's going to start pumping data in here. So what I'll do is I'll create a performance graph for a particular server. So firstly, I go line graph. In the result, the time generated is going to be the axis, legend is computer, and the value is counter value. And I want to filter to particular counter, so I'll filter on counter name, and the particular one that I'm interested in is called available megabyte, right? I can make it bigger. So this graph contains all the available megabyte counters that are collected for every computer in my workspace. So now I can create a filter called a slicer, and I want filter on computer. That's the computer name. So this one have a list of the computers that contains that has this particular perf data. So if I click on one, and then that automatically updates the field, the graph to show this one particular server. So now I can save it. Say get demo. So now I'll save to a report. I can ping this to an existing dashboard. See, this is the one that I created. I can drag and drop to wherever I want to, but when I click on it, that takes me back to the same report. So right. So I can just keep going on and on and on, and then make all the tiles I'm interested in. Once I finalize with the dashboard, I can click on share button and share this out with other people. So this is a very fancy and nice way to do a dashboard for OMS without having to use the crappy building dashboard in OMS. Okay. Alright. As I mentioned, this is the last time I'm going to show you a little bit about Graphical Runbooks, and then the Webhooks support for hybrid workers, and then the custom run as account. So really, there's not much to show you. Let's just firstly take a look at the Graphical Runbook. So I've got one. Another automation account. As you can see, these runbooks, different runbooks have different icons, right? I think the gray one is the workflow runbook, and the blue one is the PowerShell runbook, and the purple one is the Graphical Runbook. So let's open up a Graphical Runbook and see what it looks like. Oops. Edit. So now it opens up this field, what they call a canvas. So the middle part is a canvas, where you can drag and drop some commandlets. All the commandlets, you have the module loaded right in here, and you can just drag one and another, and then put them into this canvas and then link them together. So firstly, so for this one, I'm starting. This runbook is designed to start a Azure AIM version 2 VM. So firstly, I'm using this Azure IAM account to authenticate to my Azure sub. Then I'll get the particular VM status. So basically, I'm inputting the VM name as the input parameter. It's defined in the input and output field. And then I use two PowerShell workflow runbooks to filter out the status. So in order to start a VM, I need to make sure that the VM is provisioned properly and it's on the shutdown state, right? So I use these two fields, two runbooks to filter out to make sure it's provisioned and it's on the off state. And then it's a condition set up on the link here, and the condition is that if you can see, say the power state is still allocated, and then the provision state is succeeded. So only move to the start VM commandlet when these two conditions are met. So then triggers that one. So there's some limitations on that. In order to drag those activities in this on this canvas, your module must be loaded into your automation account, right? But some modules you can't just package it in a zip file and then load it into your automation account. For example, VMM. I tried to do a VMM, but VMM module was installed as part of the VMM console. There's no way I can get that into a zip file. I just send to Azure IAM. In that case, I won't be able to design Graphical Runbooks because I can't drag those activities here, right? So personally, I don't like to use this, but this is, gives you some very similar experience to those orchestrator code. Just drag and drop and then define input output, and that's the job. And also, when you try to add another runbook into your Graphical Runbook, you can only add a PowerShell workflow runbook. You can't use a normal PowerShell runbook as an activity in here. That's just by design. So there's some limitations there. All right. So now let's take a look at webhooks. So when I create a webhook, this one. So I'll give the name test webhook. By default, the expiry date is 1 year from now, and make sure you grab the URL on this page. Once you pass this page and click OK, you're never going to see this URL again, because whoever's got a URL can trigger your runbook. So treat this as your password. Grab your URL now, and then hit OK. And then you need to configure the parameters. So for stuff that I want to use webhook for, right, you always make sure you use all the parameters as optional parameter. Otherwise, when you configure on this screen, you have to fill out the value for these parameters. If you want to pass that in from Webhook, make sure you put them as optional. And then you choose a hybrid worker group in here. So this was not supported until end of last year. Okay, so that's that. And then the last thing I want to show you guys is the hybrid worker group. So I've got, in this particular automation account, I want to have one hybrid worker group. And if I go to the setting for that one, and then you can see the run as account. So default runs on the local system, but then I can choose a particular run as account that I defined in my automation account. So I click on save. Then from now on, as long as if you don't specify what account to use to run the particular command line in your runbook, this is the default account that you use to run the entire runbook. Okay, so this concludes my session. This is my session eval slide. Thanks everyone. Any questions? Yes, who have questions? See, I told you, yeah. So we're going to give this away after lunch, right? After lunch.
So do your evals over lunch. Do any evals from the morning sessions as well. The keynote, my session. Like I said, we'll have lunch now. I'll be